Boston didn't always look like the city we recognize today. In its earliest days, Boston wasn't really part of the mainland at all. It was almost an island, a compact settlement surrounded by water, connected to the rest of Massachusetts by a single, narrow strip of land. In the 1770s, the Back Bay didn't exist. Where there are streets and brownstones now, there was once open water. The city felt exposed, fragile, and inseparable from the sea. Boston lived by the tide, and sometimes suffered by it. From above, the town appears dense and tightly packed. Brick buildings and church steeples rise sharply from the cold Atlantic, clustered together as if for warmth. It looks proud, but small, a distant outpost of the British Empire, unaware it was about to become one of the most important cities in the world. That narrow land connection was called the Boston Neck. It was the only way in or out of the city by land. Today, it's Washington Street, busy and loud. But back then, it was a thin, vulnerable lifeline, often flooded by high tides. City gates stood ahead, marking the boundary between town and countryside. Nearby, a gallows loomed, a stark warning to anyone approaching. The air would have smelled of salt marsh and wet mud. It was quiet here, nothing like the traffic-filled streets that exist today. At the heart of the city stood Long Wharf, Boston's beating heart. In old engravings, the forest of shipmasts is so thick it barely lets the sky through. This was where the world arrived in America. You can almost hear it. Barrels rolling, merchants shouting, wood creaking against the docks. Tea, spices, gunpowder, letters, and rumors from London all passed through this narrow corridor. Every inch of the wharf mattered. There was no wasted space. The colony depended on it. Nearby, the old State House anchored King Street. In the 1770s, this was the face of royal authority. Elegant and refined, it stood out among the wooden shops around it. Above the roof, the Lion and the Unicorn of England still watched over the city, symbols of loyalty that were beginning to crack. Below, the streets seemed calm. Well-dressed women, men in wigs, carriages moving slowly, a city clinging to British civility, even as tensions quietly simmered beneath the surface. Boston is no longer just a town. It's an occupied city. Red-coated soldiers fill the streets, their uniforms impossible to ignore. On Boston Common, there are no families or grazing animals. Instead, rows of military tents stretch across the grass. The Common has become a parade ground. The city feels tense, watched. Locals stand at the edges, uneasy in their own home. Down by the waterfront sits Faneuil Hall, later called the Cradle of Liberty. In these early images, it looks like a simple marketplace. Fishermen sell their catch. Farmers arrive with produce. But above the noise of trade, voices rise in debate. Inside, ideas about rights, taxes, and resistance are taking shape. Commerce and politics collide here. Whispers of rebellion mix with the clatter of everyday life. Beacon Hill rises behind the town, long before it was cut down to fill the harbor. It's steep, rugged, almost wild. At the summit stands a beacon pole, ready to be lit if invasion came. The hill feels defensive, like a natural wall protecting the city below. Homes cling to its lower slopes while the peak remains bare. Boston wasn't just shaping history, it was reshaping the land itself. By 1774, the harbor falls silent. After the Boston Tea Party, the British Navy seals the port. The blockade strangles the city. Ships sit idle. Warehouses close. Ropes hang loose over still water. The energy is gone. What remains is quiet pressure. A city running out of patience, staring at a gray sky, waiting. In the north end, the Old North Church rises above narrow wooden rooftops. The streets below are dark and winding. There are no streetlights, but we know moonlight and the glow of hearth fixed on that steeple. A signal is coming. The city is holding its breath. These images remind us that the American Revolution didn't happen on a grand stage. It happened in real streets of brick and wood, salt water and mud, in marketplaces, on wharves, and in quiet corners of a small city wrestling with an enormous idea. Boston in the 1770s stood between the safety of the past and the danger of the future. Thanks for walking through early Boston. There are many more cities and many more stories waiting to be uncovered.